Okay. Shavua Tov. Today is in Chabad a big Yom Tiv. For Shabbos and Sunday are the days what's known as Yud Beis Yud Gimel Tammuz, the 12th and 13th of Tammuz. Then in the year 1927, the Fried Tafresh Pei Zayin, the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, who was arrested for spreading Yiddishkeit, specifically connected to Jewish education, was arrested on the 15th of Sivan, Tafresh Pei Zayin, 1927. And on the 3rd of Tammuz, the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe was released from what we'd call severe imprisonment and possible death to be sent to the final destination. They felt that they were going to send him to Kostroma as an exile for 3 years. So he was sent there on the 3rd of Tammuz, which was at the time not happy either, because it was, although it was better than being in prison and death, but it was obviously, he was going to be away from Chassid, from Jewish people, from the Kal, and he couldn't be able to be functioning properly as a Rebbe in Galus, Hey Ariel, Shavua Tov. And then on the 12th of Tammuz, it was some sort of public holiday for the Soviets. So he was notified, and he was told specifically by the office over there that they've been telegrammed to tell him that he's been totally freed. So not even he's no longer enough to be in Kostroma. He could go back to his family. Then I believe in Leningrad and or Moscow, and he said that they told the Rebbe that they can't give him his documents today, meaning on the 12th, because it was public holiday. So they would have to give it to him on the 13th, and they apologized, and they wanted to make sure that he didn't think that they didn't fulfill what they had to do on the 12th. Because of that, it turned out similar to Yutes Chav Kislev, the redemption of the Alter of the first Rabbi Chabad, that the Yom Tif of Yud Beis Yud Gimel Tammuz goes into, it's a 2-day Yom Tif. It's the 12th and 13th. In Chabad, we don't say Tachanun, not on the 12th, which this year was Shabbos, or the 13th. So we're going into 100 years of the previous Rebbe's release, because it happened in 1927. And now we just finished the 99th year, and we're going into the 100th year. So we'll say a few stories. First, start with the story tonight, like our custom is to say a story before we learn Halacha, a story of the Rebbe that's a connection to Yud Beis Tammuz, because the survival of Chabad was made possible because of Yud Beis Yud Gimel Tammuz, and it led to the previous Rebbe and the Rebbe coming to the United States and continuing their great work and getting the world ready for Mashiach. So the story goes is so the Rebbe came himself to America. The previous Rebbe, after leaving Russia, was in Europe, Riga, Poland, different places of Europe, until the Nazis took over and the bombardment of Poland, and they had to get the Friedrich Rebbe out of Poland in 1940. Eventually, the previous Rebbe in the month of Adar, the previous Rebbe made his way to the United States in the year 1940 Tafshin. In the year Tafshin Aleph in Sivan, the Rebbe came to the United States. This story that we're going to tell tonight is about a fellow whose name is Rabbi Schwartz, who knew the Rebbe in the 40s, means before the previous Rebbe passed away. The previous Rebbe passes away in 1950. Before the Rebbe, Friedrich Rebbe, and also, by the way, Yud Beis Tammuz is also the birthday of the Friedrich Rebbe, the 12th of Tammuz. So he knew the Rebbe in the years 1947, 48, 49, this Rabbi Schwartz, when he lived in America. He himself was a Holocaust survivor. He came back from after the war. So he had nothing left. And he was looking what to do with his life as far as direction, where he should go, what should he focus on. And then in the 1940s, knowing our Rebbe, the Rebbe told him, I think maybe you should go to South America, possibly Brazil. Go to Brazil because there's going to be a lot of refugees coming eventually to Brazil, and you'll set something up. So he followed the Rebbe's advice, and he went to Brazil. And in Brazil, he set up a very, very successful school for children. That was a school that was one of the main Jewish schools for children. That not necessarily was a school only for religious children, but also a lot of them were from families that were not yet observant of Shabbos, of Torah mitzvahs, etc. And they sent their children to this Jewish school to get a Jewish education. One week, he walks into his office, and he sees the secretary says that there's a couple whose child is in the school, is waiting to see them. So he lets them into his office. He lets this couple into his office, and the couple, it's a well-known story. The woman starts to cry, and she leans over and she tells the rabbi, "Rabbi, listen, You've been very close and helpful to our family, and we're very thankful for the education you gave our son. But we're not here to talk about our son. We have another thing of concern, and we're not really affiliated, so we don't have anywhere else to turn, and we think you have to help us." He said, "Our daughter was fell in love with this non-Jewish person, and as much as we try to explain her that Jewish people should be with Jewish people and Gentiles should be with Gentiles, and like the law and Torah says later, and this is this week's parsha, the story of Pinchas and Zimri, that it's not for Jewish people to be with non-Jewish women, or Jewish women to be with non-Jewish men. And as much as we try to speak to her, she's not going to listen, and the wedding is set, and she's going to get married, and we don't know what to do. It's destroying us. We're very upset." So he says, "Right away, sure, I'll do whatever I can. Can I get the number of this of your daughter?" He gets the number, and he calls her up and says, "Hello, my name is Rabbi Schwartz. I met with your parents." And as soon as he starts to kind of get into the conversation, where she realizes why he's calling, she says, "Rabbi, there's nothing for me to talk to you about," and she hangs up the phone. So of course he doesn't try once. So he tries a second time. He dials again. And he says, "Listen here, young woman, Rabbi Schwartz, please stop calling me," hangs up the phone. Tries a third time, she just hangs up right away. So he doesn't know what to do. He knows he can't just give up. So he calls the parents up and he says, is it possible for me to get the address? I'll go see your daughter. So they give her the address. And he comes to her house, he knocks on the door, and she's not a woman who was raised in a bad family, that she doesn't have normal, proper behavior. A rabbi comes to her door. She, of course, lets him in. And she sits down and she's polite and she listens and she lets him talk, and he gives her the whole talk about the importance of Jews marrying Jews and Gentiles marrying Gentiles, and it's not the way to be, and it's not according to Torah, and the 2,000 years of legacy and the 3,000 years of legacy, Avram. He tells her the whole idea to try to impress upon her to break up this relationship and not marry the Gentile. So she says, "Rabbi, I hear what you're saying. I respectfully have to ask you to please leave, because this conversation is going to go nowhere. I'm not going to break up. I love this person. He's my soulmate, and we're going to get married." So he leaves. He has nothing else to do. He's thinking, what else could he do? And then he remembers, he goes, "Why didn't I think about this before? I know the Lubavitcher Rebbe. Why don't I call the Rebbe?" So he calls 770. And the way it worked then is, and the way it worked in the Rebbe's, when the Rebbe was with us, the Rebbe would had a team of secretaries. His main secretary was Rabbi Chadakov. Rabbi Chadakov was like the Rebbe's chief of staff. So all screening of calls, conversations went through Rabbi Chadakov. So Rabbi Chadakov listens he calls and says, "Rabbi Chadakov, this is Rabbi Schwartz calling from Brazil, and so he says, I hear, let me, he's thinking, he's talking, and he says, 1 second, let me go to the Rebbe." And he goes back to the Rebbe. He goes away from the phone. He comes back on the phone. And Rabbi Chadakov says, "The Rebbe says to tell this young woman that there's a rabbi in Brooklyn who cannot sleep at night because you are with a Gentile." So Rabbi Schwartz is wondering what that he doesn't feel like that's going to really work. He says he didn't know what the Rebbe was talking about, what the message was. He says to Rabbi Chadakov, he says, who's this rabbi in New York that can't sleep? So all of a sudden he hears, the way it would work was, the Rebbe would a lot of times be on the phone when they called into Rabbi Chadakov. If Rabbi Chadakov felt the Rebbe should listen, there was a buzzer that they had different offices. The Rebbe would pick up the phone. And in extreme circumstances, the Rebbe would talk either to Chadakov or to the person directly. But usually the Rebbe just listened. So here the Rebbe was obviously on the phone. And he hears the Rebbe's voice. And the Rebbe says, Menachem Mendel Schneerson in Brooklyn, New York cannot sleep because she's about to marry a Gentile. He realizes, so he calls her up immediately, and he sets up another appointment with her. He realizes he has to do this in person in her parents' house. And first he's thinking, before he sets up the appointment, actually, he's thinking, I forgot a second part, he's thinking that this is really not going to work. She's not going to respond to this. It's going to be weird to her. He's going to be borderline creepy to her. He doesn't feel this is something. He's wondering what he should do. If he should do it, what should he listen? All of a sudden, the phone rings again in his office. He picks up the phone. It's Rabbi Chadakov on the line again. Says, the Rebbe says to tell you that a chassid doesn't ask questions. And he does what he's supposed to tell her. And to push it, you could tell her that she knows who Rabbi Schneerson is. She's met him before. Okay, this is all strange. He doesn't know when she ever met the Rebbe. He goes back, he gets on the phone, he goes to the house, he sets up an appointment, he goes to the woman. He says to the woman that I have a message from you that there's a rabbi in New York, Rabbi Schneerson, who cannot sleep because you're about to marry the Gentile. And she loses it. She says, Rabbi, I've been polite, I've been respectful. You're really getting on my nerves. This is not. So he finally doesn't know what to do. He says, in the parents' house, he's trying to find maybe there's something in the parents' house that has a picture of the Rebbe, because the Rebbe said that she's met him. I never met this Rabbi Schneerson. I don't know any rabbis, she said. So finally they found some sort of magazine that had a picture of the Rebbe. And he shows his pictures. This person told me to tell you, he can't sleep at night. She takes the picture and she starts staring at the picture for a long time. And finally she breaks down. She says, every night, the past few weeks, this person comes to me in my dream and asks me not to marry this Gentile. And I just thought that I was thinking about it so much that I was imagining some sort of old rabbi that I never seen before coming to my dreams. It was some imagination that it was kind of formed in my dream. But now the Rebbe says, you know who I am, and I can't sleep at night. And eventually she actually broke off the wedding, and she married a nice Jewish boy, Baruch Hashem. The second story I want to tell quickly, we want to learn some halacha, a story of the Baal Shem Tov, that we try to tell a story of the Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov is a story of an innkeeper who, part of his, he was a very kind, generous person, and he took upon himself the responsibility of raising two orphans that they weren't related. One was a boy, one was a girl. That they both worked in the house, and they were raised in his home, in his estate where his inn was. You know, he did the work for the men, and she did the work for the women, helped in the kitchen. And as time went by, he thought to himself, this innkeeper, that wouldn't it be a wonderful idea for them to marry, for these two orphans to get married. So he comes to the boy and he says to him, listen, I know you guys work together near my house, and of course everything's according to halacha, modesty, and you've not. But I don't know if you ever thought about it. But either way, you know, I think maybe it's a good idea for you two to get married. It'd be perfect. You know each other and you're familiar, and your backgrounds are similar. So he says, I would love to marry her, but I'm punched. I have no money. How am I supposed to make a wedding? I just get my food or a little bit of money that I get working for you, but I have nothing. So he says, don't worry about that. Never mind all that. I'm going to provide you with a lot of money, and you're going to go and you're going to figure this out. You're going to get married. So the boy and girl meet and they discuss, and of course they both agree to get married. They're very excited, and he gives the money, and he says, finally they decide one day they're going to go to town, to the market, and they're going to get ready for their wedding and buy the things they need to get married. And they come to town and they have their money, and they're about to start getting ready for this day of purchases. And of course, as every groom and bride would be, they're very excited. And they come to the town and they hear there's a big commotion in town. And they say, what's going on? They hear crying and screaming. And well, there's this person who owed a lot of money to the Pirates. The Pirates was the landlord of the times. And they had rights. There was no rights to the subjects of the Pirates. The Pirates could do whatever he wants. So you had some better, some worse. And sometimes the Pirates exercised full rights. And he said, this family owes me money. If they don't pay the money, such and such money, by the end of the day or the end of the week, he's going to kill them all. So everyone's crying, they don't know what to do. And the groom and the bride look at each other, the two orphans, and they say, how can we go shopping for our family, for our setup in life, when this family is about to be put to death for what they owe the money to the Pirates, the landlord? And they investigate and they find out that as it so happens, that, of course, as it so happens, that the exact amount of money needed to redeem this family is the exact amount of money they have to make their purchases for the wedding. And they both look at each other and they make up their mind that no matter what the consequences are, they're going to use the money to pay up this ransom and let the family live. And they did, and they were so excited. Everyone thanked them. But now they have to come back and tell the landlord, so they didn't know what to do. The landlord could be very upset at them for using the money, even for such a great mitzvah like Pidyon Shvuim. But he gave them money to get married. So they decided to kind of twist the truth a bit. And they said, we lost the money in some sort of robbery, which it pretty much was for all practical purposes, because the Paris was most likely exercising things that weren't according to the law. So according to, he overreacted in his reaction. So the Paris says, okay, I'll give you money, and not as much as maybe you got the first time, but we'll have to make the wedding either way. So he gives them money, so they go back and they buy everything in the wedding date, and everyone's here to celebrate the wedding for this young couple of these orphans. And all of a sudden, a wagon pulls up, and unbeknownst to the people at all, the Baal Shem Tov and a whole bunch of his students. And they say they want to join the wedding. They don't know who they were. So they said, sure, of course, there'll be more simcha. So they come and they're dancing, and everyone's so simcha and freilich for the wedding. And afterwards, like the custom was, and the fiddler on the roof, everyone gets up to make their announcement of what they're going to gift this young couple. So the one person gets up, the next person, everyone's gifting. Finally, it was the Baal Shem Tov's turn. He doesn't know who they are. He gets up, he says, I'm going to gift the young couple a inn. And everyone is laughing. Everyone thinks, who's the Baal Shem Tov? They don't even know who he is. What's he gifting an inn for? Mishrabi, he has nothing to gift, so he's making a joke. The next person says, the next student gets up and says, I'm going to gift the young couple the mill. And everyone starts to laugh. Okay. The third person gets up, the student gets up and says, I'm going to gift the young couple the river that goes through the area. Oh, everyone starts to laugh. And they've so on and so forth. The students of the Baal Shem Tov are gifting these tremendous things to this couple. Everyone thinks it's nice. Everyone, it's a little humorous, etc., and it goes on. But at the end, the innkeeper wanted them to have parnasa, so he rents them a small inn, and with a big potential. It was expensive a little bit, but he helps them. One day, someone comes knocking on the door, and it's a person who looks like his clothes are ripped, he's muddied. He says, must come help me. The landlord of our area, a very, very powerful person. I was here to take care of his son. He was going on a hunt, and the horses and the wagon fell into a ditch, and I could get out, he can't get out. If we don't help him out, he's gonna suffocate and die. You must come help me. So of course the young groom, now his own person who owned his own inn, of course takes off his clothes, he runs in to help him. And they get there, and it's really deep in the mud, and it's really finally, with a lot of effort, they were able to pull out this young son of the landlord. It's a different landlord, a different area, and he says, and they take him and they bring him to the home. He needs at least 4 or 5 days to recover from the ordeal, and after he finally has enough strength, he goes home. And he goes home. His father's so happy, and he tells the father the story and how this innkeeper kept him and saved him, and not for the innkeeper. So the father decides he's so happy, he makes a celebration to celebrate for the miracle of his son, and he invites all his friends, landlords from all in the area, and he invites the couple, the groom, because the groom and his wife, because they protected him. And in the great celebration, he gets up and he says, "I'm so happy, and I'm so grateful to this young Jewish innkeeper. I'm gifting him the inn." And the next landlord says, "Well, I'm not going to be put up by this person. I'm gifting him, I own the river. I'm gifting him the river." And the next one says, "Oh, I own the mill. I'm gifting him the mill." And all the gifts that were given by the holy Baal Shem Tov and his students ended up actually weren't humorous, weren't a joke. They actually ended up becoming true. And they ended up becoming a wealthy family of their own, couple of their own, and family of their own, and ended up being a family of chesed. And Baal Shem Tov was here to repay their great kindness that they did, sacrificing the little bit that they had to set up stability in their own family to save another family. So the lessons are, of course, great and very much connected to Yibes Tammuz. I want to wish everyone a good Yom Tif, and now we're going to go to our Halacha class. Let's bring up the text. So we're starting this week, we have 10 minutes. We're starting this week the laws of Tachanun, which are, of course, we know what Tachanun is, but everyone knows what Tachanun is. Repentance that we say after davening or different times in the tefillah. But let's just learn a little bit in Kitzur. It gives us a little insight. Concerning his many prayers, Moshe said himself, "V'eshiv b'har 40 yom." I sat on the mountain for 40 days. I stood on the mountain, Ve'esnapel ufnei Hashem. I prayed before myself. I prostrated myself before Adonai, before Hashem. And based on this, the Kitzur teaches us Jews symbolically also assume these three positions during prayer: sitting before the Amida, Shmoneh Esrei, standing during the Amida. So that's why, by the way, when it comes to Shema, you're supposed to sit. So even though some people, and myself also, like to stand when I daven, and you have to sit before Kriya Shema, not as you're about to say Shema, because then it seems like you have to sit for Shema, but you're supposed to be sitting by Shema. So you have to sit before the Amida, standing during the Amida, and then you have to fall on the face after the Amida. Falling on the face like Moshe Rabbeinu did, which was the Nefilas Apayim. So here he says he brings the three psukim. Ve'eshev b'hara barim yom. I sat on the mountain 40 days. That's the sitting before davening. V'anoichi amaditi b'hara. I stood on the mountain. That is the standing of Shmoneh Esrei. Ve'esnapel l'fnei Hashem. I prostrated myself before Hashem. That is the falling, the Nefilas Apayim that we have to do. So that's what we do every day. We fall on our face, which is called the Tachanun. This is called Tachanun, based on the Torah. Originally, Nefilas Apayim was performed by entirely prostrating one's body upon the ground while praying and pleading for one's needs. Hold on, Rebecca, let's just finish this little section. However, with the destruction of the temple, this practice was discouraged. Also, the Talmud Megillah 22a, I guess we'll get this soon, states that only a righteous person, comparable to Joshua, who is assured for a response to a prayer, in this manner may assume this position in prayer. It means to totally fall on your face. We don't do that anymore. Therefore, the custom has become to perform Nefilas Apayim only in a way by sitting and tilting one's head downward. So what we do is we do the Nefilah, or with the left hand, we do Nefilas Apayim. Yes, Rebecca.
My question is about when you said that we have to sit down for Kriya Shema. So let's say the Kehila is doing Chazaras Hashatz, or let's say the Aron is open. Like you're not davening with them, but the Aron is open. Then do you still sit down for Shema?
No, it's a very good question. In general, if the ark is opened, it would be respectful to stand. I'd be preferable to stand. I'm going to say that without checking, but I would say it's preferable to stand. The only really time when everyone's standing in honor of the Sefer Torah is the person who's holding the Sefer Torah won't stand. Let's say if you do Hagbah, for instance, right? So someone's holding the first Sefer Torah, he won't stand. But in general, if the ark is opened, that would be the case where you would stand. That could be you could stand while it's opened, wait, and then when they close it, sit back down and continue the Shema.
Don't separate yourself from the tzibur.
Yeah, it's disrespectful because people see you sitting, you don't know why you're sitting. It could sometimes, in general, it's a custom.
If you're not, to do or something.
Say that again.
It's a lotus code to do, or right?
Separating. So okay, people don't always hold with the minyan. That happens, but yes, Jonathan is right that it looks like you're separating yourself. So you can't say the Brich Shemay then, but you could wait and then sit back down and continue Shema.
And let's say you're now back to Tachanun. If you're not davening in a shul, you still put your.
We'll get to that.
Okay.
We're gonna get to that.
No, okay. Then you don't fool your.
Jonathan, let's not jump ahead. Do not get to this. Let's not be spoiler alert. Let's get to it in its right time. It's going to be discussed in this chapter. Okay, so the Halacha says after the Shmoneh Esrei we say the Tachanun. So we say like we have the three psukim ve'eshev amaditi ve'snapel. So we know that we have to sit, stand, and fall on our faces. We brought down already that we don't fall on our places like we once did, which is total prostrate on the floor, unless you're on the level of Yehoshua. Therefore, today we just bow our heads in Tachanun. Now, in the Nefilas Apayim. So, we say Nefilas Apayim, ve'ein ledaber sichas chulin ben Shmoneh Esrei Tachanun. This is a seemingly interesting statement, but you should not be talking wasteful talk. Chulin is wasteful talk. Idle talk, he says, that you shouldn't do it after Shmoneh Esrei, before the Tachanun. So it should go right into Tachanun. Let's see what number 1 says. In other words, any conversation not relevant to tefillah. What's chulin? Idle talk. It means not even to have a discussion in Divrei Torah. it's not the time. So anything, if you're, let's say, running a shul, a minyan, or you're the gabbai, whatever. So these are things that are connected to the davening, something else. But to have something, a talk that's not its appropriate time, everything has its appropriate time, including even if divrei Torah. B'shachris, he says like this, Kivan sheyesh tefillin v'smala. This applies to men. So those who are righties and their tefillin is wrapped on their, okay, the righty-lefty question, obviously those who are lefties know that most things that righties do with their right hand, lefties will do with their left hand and everything, like the Shema, washing your hands, etc. So the left hand for a lefty is their right hand. But in this case, if you put the tefillin on, if you have the tefillin on in your left hand, the shachas kivan sheish tefillin b'smayli, you have the tefillin on your left hand. Noitin al tzad yamin, so you don't rest on your left hand because your tefillin are there. So in that case, you rest on your right hand. But otherwise, mincha, for instance, you would do it on your left hand. Smoil is more the side towards Tachanun. In Chabad, if once we use the Rebbe would use the tefillin strap as well to kind of put it on our forehead. That's the way we do it in Chabad. So you go to the right side. Mishum kovet tefillin, as respect to the tefillin, you shouldn't fall, so say, on your tefillin. Mincha noitin outside small, but however, that's only for Shacharis, because Shacharis, you have tefillin, mincha, you would do it on your left side. Okay, so footnote number 2, it is disrespectful to lean your head on the tefillin, ritzua straps, which is wound around your left arm. The Rebbe supported it with the strap of the sharosh. So that's probably something more Kabbalistic. Okay. Nefilas apayim, falling, that we do the Tachanun, which is, we say after the Shmona Esrei. Yesh liyas miyushav, you should say it while you're sitting. Ach b'shas atchak, when necessary or in a difficult situation. Yochal liyas gam umad, you can do it also while you're standing, but leaning down. After you finish the Tachanun, okay, there's different nuschoas. We're going to according to the nusach as the Kitzur says it. After Tachanun, you say the v'anachnu lo'neda. V'yesh la'omer b'yeshiva. Sorry, Ariel. If you have a question, Ariel, let me know because you just there's sound coming over. Okay, you had a question, Ariel? No. All right.
No, I didn't. No, sorry.
If you have a after Tachanun, you say v'anach l'neda. V'yesh la'omer b'yeshiva. You start v'anach l'neda in this while you're sitting. V'achach oim devayimer ma nasa. You say v'anachnu l'neda, and then ma nasa, you stand up. Okay, so then you start standing up to finish the Tachanun or the v'anach l'neda, and then you could sit, of course, by the Ashrei. Ein nefilas apayim ki im b'makom sheisham sefer Torah. So this is the question that Rebecca asked. If you're not in a shul, right? So there's no falling on your face if there is no Sefer Torah, which is the definition of a shul. Avamakim shein sham Sefer Torah, in a place where there is no Sefer Torah. Afal pi sheish sham shar Sefer Kodesh, even if there's other holy books in the place that you're in. Ein noifim lapanem, we don't fall on our faces or lean to our left or right. Ela oimrim es hamizmar belin nefilas apayim. We say it, we don't omit the prayer, but we don't fall. The custom is to sit down anyways. Ukshimsalim be'ezras beis haKnesses, uPesach beis haKnesses besuach, nechshav kilo ha'isham sefer Torah. Of course, if you are praying, he says here visibly to the door, but the same thing would apply, of course, to any section of the Torah that's visible towards the Sefer Torah, including the women's section. So the women's section, of course, then the Nefilas Apayim, of course, is done. So even if you're not in the actual sanctuary, or you're in the rooms, or you have visual of the sanctuary, then you would still fall down on your arm, which is how we do it today, even if you're actually not in the room where the Sefer Torah is or the sanctuary is. Okay. I'm going to do one more law, and then just open for questions if anyone has any questions. Let's say you are in a house of a mourner. Okay, there's different customs for different places, and there's even different customs for Anshe Yerushalayim when it comes to mourners' homes. But we're not learning the laws of mourner; we're just learning the laws of Tachanun as it applies to the house of a mourner. Or based on Meser in the house of someone who passed away, meaning before the levaya, before the burial. Even if there's no person there that's mourning. You don't say all the 7 days of avodas in the house of the dead person, I mean, let's say the person passed away. So not only before the burial, but even if in the house of the person who passed away, even if they're sitting shiva for whatever reason in another home. So then you don't say Tachanun in that home all the 7 days of avodas, including the mincha of the seventh day. Even when they come back, they do not say Tachanun. What's the law with regard if there is a ovel in the shul? Sometimes a person who davens with the minyan, even if they're an ovel, they can't put together a minyan, for whatever reason. There's many times you go to shul where a mourner will come to shul, not to daven at home. So what happens then? So then the minyan does say Tachanun. The individual does not say Tachanun because the minyan doesn't follow the individual. The minyan is more established. But in the home of the ovel, no matter who's there, not just the person mourning, but everyone doesn't say Tachanun that day. Okay, let's see footnote number 4. If the deceased left no mourners, what happens if no one's okay? So let's say the deceased has no mourners. Hold on, Rebecca. The deceased has no mourners. Hey, Danny. It is customary for 10 persons to gather daily at the deceased's home and pray. And then the deceased's home would be based on mace, even though there's no ovel, and you would not say Tachanun like we said in the house of a mace. You don't say for 7 days. Just not sure what this one line means. Obviously, if they're talking about coming back from the burials within the 7 days, I'm assuming even if they come back after the 7 days, maybe the day that they come back, they don't say Tachanun. I have to check on that one line what that means. Yes, Rebecca.
Why is Vahurachum, the longer part, said only on Monday and Thursday? Is it because like we only say that when the Torah is taken out?
Yeah, we're gonna get to that. We're gonna get to that. We're gonna get to the Vahurachum section when we get there. All right, everyone. Shavua Tov, and for like in Chabad, wishes a good Yom Tov for everyone, a good Yom Tov, and it's that day that we celebrate. So, Thomas, thank you for joining, and we'll see you all at the next class. Take care.
Thank you.